here we are, bottom of the Smash Mountain, and to introduce Season 3, there is nobody who I would want to have more than Stock Money, one of the best seeders of all time, one of the best co-founders of Melee Online of all time, a true legend. Sean, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you, man. You didn't even tell me this was the fucking premiere because for some lore, um, fucking Cypher hit me up not too long ago, um, well, actually, it has been kind of long ago
April.
April, Christ, do a podcast for Bottom of the Smash Mountain, and I was like super bad at it. And we had literally like I've been on a bunch of podcasts, but like that's probably my favorite interview I've ever done. Like we just like explored a lot. Then we lost the audio, but we're here now, and that's what matters. So thank you, man. The pleasure is all mine.
There's nobody who I would want to open up Season 3 with me more because I felt so bad asking you to do the audio, do your own audio, because that's what I had to do at the time. I didn't have internet like I have now and a laptop that I can use for OBS and just press start recording. And, you're pretty much here where we are now, but it was rough because I thought it was a great conversation, and we it's not anybody's fault. I'm not blaming you at all. It's just stupid corruption of files. It do be that way sometimes. So I wanted to get you back on ever since, but I thought that it should try to make it special, and rather than go for like, I don't know, a big name or something really splashy, I was like, this is a big splash for me. This is important to me that we treat you right here, Sean.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Well, I mean, it's fair. It's only fair because I mean, you had to address the past a little bit, but we can't live in it. I mean, I got plenty of the past to talk about, but we're in the present now. We're living it. I'm ready.
Speaking of present, I wanted to try and recall what exactly we were talking about when we did the podcast that nobody will ever be able to hear. Do you have family members who are like, they have their own little passion and obsession that they know absolutely everything about? Is that you?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, so kind of like a big thing that got me into melee and kind of like shaped my persona is like my family, like in general, is just kind of one of those people that like everyone has encyclopedic knowledge on like all their interests and shit. So like you have like my dad and my um like middle brother. I'm the oldest of three boys, and and those two are like they can recall every sports player. My mom has like insane musical retention, and then my youngest brother, it's like absurd. He just like literally everything. Me, it was always like it started with mythology when I was younger. I was really into like Greek myths and shit. Um, I mean, if we really want to go back as far as gaming wise, it probably goes to like the Pokemon Let's Play era. Like I'd been on YouTube like since I was like 10 years old, 2006. I'd like always been making shit.
Let's
Um,
go.
yeah, and like before that, before Melee, I played League, and like my kind of my niche in League, was like I wasn't really I only ever really like peaked at plat, but I was able to be like a pretty decent like analyst because of like how much content I consumed and like um as far as that's concerned. Sorry about that
No worries.
part out. Give me one sec.
Blurring a part out? Why would I do that? No, well, I should actually probably think hard about whether or not I want to
Sorry
bring up
about
parts.
that.
No, you're fine. You're good.
Um, yeah, however you want to deal with that. Anyways, but yeah, no, as far as league, like I knew all the players and shit. Like I just like on the ladder, like not even just like the pro players. I knew all these like challenger players with like 10 viewer streams and shit. And I was just like a pretty good scout. Which translated really well into like how I got into Melee. Like I knew about Melee from Evo 2013. And then going from there I became like a massive stream monster. And like when I started playing, like you didn't have Uncle Punch, you didn't have 20XX. You kind of just had training mode, and you had like the people you could play with. like, which in my case was like high school people and like, a few other people I might mention later on that, are still in the community. But yeah, so like I was on training mode, watching Twitch streams, tournament streams, going back, pretty much consumed as much goddamn content as possible. And that's why I know, as many people say, conceivably every fucking player, like under the sun. Like I would argue, like it's between me and the only other person other than me who I think has quite the same retention, but she's even conceded that I might have more is Pikachu 942.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, she also has a pretty high retention, but very different eras. She's from like Game Facts and shit. I'm from like I don't know,
like the
like,
beginning of the Twitch era, right?
I'm not from anything really. I mean, I had a Reddit kid phase, but that's long gone. It's funny, right? You get to this point, and I still compete. I'm like one of the like TOs that like still competes nowadays. I guess as far as like my prevalence is one, but I don't get to play Melee. Like I don't play Melee too much, like outside of social or like tournament situations. But you know, so like I'm not getting wins like I used to. Not that I was anything ever too crazy, but I was all right in my prime. But if there's one thing no one can ever beat me on, is knowing players. Like legit. And the funniest part is too is like I've almost used it to my advantage in like a grimy sense. Is like in that at Shine 2018, right? I've TO'd Shine forever. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But um TO'd that forever, and like I literally know who these people are and they have no idea who I am. So I'm like scouting out like, people like I think I'll lose to, but I might have a good set. But like some people it's like, ooh, I don't know, it might be demon time. I might be trying to get some money real quick. So I've been known to go on some runs. We'll see. We'll see next time. But yeah, to like address that, yeah. Like that's kind of my thing in Melee. I know a shit ton of results and I know like multiple players and regions. Like my knowledge is kind of absurd. And just have like complete and total recall of like just the most neat. Like this has got to be some of the most niche shit that like you could like remember to the extent I am. Like I'm really on like it's funny I play Ice Climbers because like the way it is almost fits the Ice Climbers kind of tagline. People call them like the fucking bug collector shit. That's what I feel like when it comes to knowing all these players. I'm like the bug collector of the Melee scene. But someone's got to do it. It's a dirty job. So, and I'm very much up to the task because I love it. I find all that shit. It's just, it's funny. It goes back to the myths, dude. Like, I just love lore in general when it comes to like pretty much anything. Like, if you saw like how much time I spend watching documentaries and shit, it's absurd. I just enjoy knowing history, and everyone has their own different interpretations to it. Like I'm very MeleeStats adjacent, but where I differ from them is I'm more like focused on not that everyone Bonin fucking great friend of mine, known him for years from the Connecticut scene. Literally love the shit out of his Smash history writings. But for me, like we just have different he and I have different interpretations of it. He has like a textbook interpretation of it, whereas I'm more like kind of like you're, out at the bar, shooting the shit kind of, recalling of it. But that's the beauty of Melee and of any medium, and like why I kind of love the comparison to, your regular sports or your regular niche hobbies, like adjacent to like trading card games and shit. There's just so much rich history about the players, the game that you don't really get out of other shit. And that's why I'm still here fucking like 8 years later. So there you go.
So then why does SP99, another person who's a regular in the MeleeStats Discord, get credit for Flash at Riptide and not you?
Well, because that's the Falco Discord, and much respect to them. There's a lot of grinders in there. I'll give a shout out to Arrow from Chicago, who's also in that Discord, who was on the verge of just being ranked in Chicago. Pretty decent Falco player that always grinded, but like particularly made strides like throughout the quarantine era to kind of get ready for this new era of LAN, and has definitely been like showing up as far as it's concerned. I knew who Flash was before, not to the same extent as some other people did, but I very much knew his results. I knew how he had done it. Like, I think the first time I really became familiar with him was at there was this regional called Agus in northeastern Ohio. Plup was at it too, and Flash did fairly well at that. That tournament was more like a Jake and Shake. He like Flash just always kind of lived in the Jake and Shake and shadow of like both of them are really like strong ass players that like presumably came out of nowhere, but not really. They'd always like been in
Right.
their scene. And it's just Jake and Shaken would show up more. Flash is just like it's all attendance with Flash. Like he just would not show up to shit. And it's interesting. That region has like a lot of players like that. I'm very like for example, someone who actually used to go out to stuff more and is now going back after quarantine is I'll shout out. I played him on Netplay all the time back in the day, pre Slippy. Grandma's Got Game, GGG, the Yoshi player. That region just has like a lot of hitters that like people just sleep on because it's like, oh, northeastern Ohio, like that's bumfuck. If I know anything about Melee, it's the people that come from bumfuck you got to be terrified of. Okay, if there's the one thing I've learned.
It's a lesson
Oh,
well learned by a lot of the Melee community after
I
watching
mean, like
Riptide.
Riptide, not even that, dude. It goes all the way back to just if we're looking at the basic concept of like pro melee. The fact that like seven of the best players of all time and like at one point like, when they were all active, the definitive top seven, that you have five like, um North Americans, like fucking Americans, and then you have just two people from Sweden of all like Sweden. Like that in the scheme of things, if you think of like shooting games and shit, Sweden's up there. But like I didn't really you don't really associate it with fighting games. Not that you associate, any specific that's the beauty of fighting games is that like they are very big in Asia, but like I don't think I could really like tie them down to one because like for example in Counter Strike, it's like the Europeans and sometimes the Brazilians too, but the Europeans are just disgusting, right? Um, but it's just so at the end of the day, it's just so interesting that you know usually you'd think, okay, this game was most popular. It was popular in Japan, but most popular in North America, at least as far as longevity standpoint.
Yeah.
Yet, two of like the greatest of all time are just from Sweden, and not only are they from Sweden, they're from like the two opposing cities in Sweden that adds that much more of a lore layer to it. Like, dude, it's fucking crazy. Like, this game's insane.
I just love how Europe, the East Coast, and the West Coast all have different personalities that you just get called, oh, you're from the East Coast when you go over to another region and you start playing more along the lines of trying to go, hard on the punish game. Somebody's going like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. And then Europe is kind of in the same vein a little bit, but like I feel like they like even harder focus on like trying to extend punish, and then of course the West Coast, like it's that stereotype of just like playing more field based or neutral or whatever. But like I love that there's narratives about like those really big regions in the world.
I know, isn't that so funny that people call you by your coast instead of like your state, and then it's like, man, y'all really shaft in the Midwest out here too, because I mean, we just talked about Flash, and I mean, I just talked about Neo. Neo's one of my northeastern Ohio is literally one of the most like fascinating case studies. Just fucking in Melee. I mean, Mango was there at one point too.
Also produced
So,
the best TikToker that we have probably to date. Not a big deal. Shout outs to
oh,
gosh,
Zets
Zets.
is more. Well, actually, I think he might be like from there originally, but I mean, he's in Columbus, but I know he went to I'm not gonna claim to know my Ohio, but I know he like I think he was like from saw Frecky talking about this on Twitter. Shouts to Frecky too, also Neo. I know there was a big regional there at one point, like in Youngstown. I don't know if that's in Neo. I believe me, I'm from Massachusetts. I don't know. I don't claim to know shit about Ohio, and I'll probably never go there. I mean, Riptide look cool and all, but Ohio's not for me. I'm just gonna keep it real. But
No, but isn't Rubes Day a Neo event? Because I feel like I see enough names
nah,
that I
that's
associate.
Columbus.
Okay, so then Zets is not that. Let's
That's
be clear, then
Columbus.
not Neo.
Funny enough, actually, the reason why I thought of Grandma's Got Game on a side note was that they had a 30-minute. Their logo's been doing pretty well. They've like consistently around like 30 plus. Um, entrance like in northeastern Ohio in 2021 for Melee. Like pretty cool stuff, if you ask me. So
I think that's great. There was somebody who had posted onto Twitter like saying, "How are the locals going in your regions or in your specific states?"
yeah,
Or
that
like,
was real beat. Yeah,
mm-hmm. And it was like people were saying like 30 here, 30 there, 40 here, 40 there. Like really cool to hear that like for those pockets of communities within Smash or within Melee, excuse me, that there's a decent amount of people attending weeklies. Like that to me seems like a good sign of the people wanting to come out and play and not just do online. I'm never going to try to claim that online is one-to-one same with offline, especially in a tournament setting. It's just that there's a lot of reasons to stay home still. I mean, the pandemic is still a thing. The ease of use is still a thing. Playing Melee in your pajamas is still a thing.
yeah. I mean, this is like something I always bring up, but like the direction of this game, I'm very glad that weeklies are still around, and I'm glad they're still popping. I mean, I run one of the ones that's been doing fairly well still. Like, in my opinion, getting 30 gamers like there any or more like on a weekday night with the hecticness of life, especially in this era, it's a blessing, you know. But for a while, I thought the direction has been going toward very clearly towards weekend events being kind of the wave, so to speak. And it really seems like that is the direction ultimately. So, like what you've seen like in recent events, um, because like some that whole thread kind of originated from like the concern of um I think nightclub like had been getting 64, and then for whatever reason I think they were a little concerned about getting like 40 to like you know 50, and I was like, and I kind of I'm friends with all of them, we're region adjacent. I kind of just gave them the sense of like you guys kind of are the hub. Like we're still in a weird transitionary point, you know. Like ultimately, that's just kind of where we're at the moment, and to kind of just adapt to that and just you gotta put the work in. I've always been a big thing of like having to do like the social media, like having a newsletter, whatever you got to do to get people in the know. Um, and that's paid off for me, and it's paid off for other people. So, but in general, though, don't be surprised if just like weekend events are just like way more. I mean, weekend events have done incredibly well since like they've been doing well before, and they've like maintained pretty much for the most part the same kind of momentum. It's different because you lose people that like were around, like it's just a testament to how fucking long it's been, really. I mean, we're going on like 2 years, so it's like
Yeah.
a lot changes, but you know kind of it is what it is, but like very much so. It's good to see people playing in general, so you know
Yeah, and so for me, for update for me, this podcast episode in particular will come out after this upcoming weekend where Super Smash Con is happening, and in Lancaster, PA, 717. I will be going to the kickoff weekly that's going to be hopefully held every Saturday. We had not had weeklies because we could not find a venue this entire summer and fall. So this is finally my time to shine or something. I don't know. But like I've just been with this computer, it's a laptop, being not great with Melee, although shout outs to Ham Yojo and the entire Diet Melee team for putting together a great mod to make it possible. It's all right still, but like I was playing with somebody in Lancaster and it was 40 ping and it's decent enough. I have no idea why it was that high, but I'm thinking I feel like it has something to do with my laptop. So anyway, it should not have been 40 ping. I'm really happy to be going back to another tournament. This will be my second IRL ever, and then I'll be able to
Blows my mind you've only gone to one, but hey,
but I'll be able to go to a lot more if it's held every week. So shout outs to Jay Bobison and to Curtis, who are trying to make this happen every week moving forward now that we have a venue.
No, that's very cool. I'm happy for y'all. I mean, as an aside, I know this is like kind of my show, so to speak, a little bit, but it's very much your show as well. I mean, you're the fucking host. Thank you for inviting me. But like, where's the venue at? What's the venue? What's the T?
Yeah, so the venue is let's just more or less paint a picture. Lancaster County, mostly farmland, Amish. We have Amish people here. They do farming. But there's a little pocket in the middle, more or less. It's Lancaster City. There are no high risers. Literally, the tallest building is a Hilton hotel or something that goes maybe 6 floors up. It is really not that big of a city, but it would probably remind you a little bit of like maybe Philadelphia suburbs or Maryland suburbs. Like it's just,
sure,
yeah. That's just basically like, somebody took a chunk of outer Philadelphia and put it in the middle of Amish land. Like that's what it would remind you of. So there's a university here called Millersville University, and so there's a building somewhere on campus, I think, if I recall correctly, where it's being held. I didn't look at it too hard. I didn't even look to see if the event was in Lancaster. I just saw the event go up on our Discord, on the 717 Melee Discord, saying IRL locals are back, and I said to myself, I'll just register for that. I didn't even look at the address. I looked at it afterwards because I assumed it was in Lancaster.
Wow, that's how dedicated you are to it.
But I'll look at the address a little bit harder leading up to. We have 6 entrants so far. Doesn't surprise me because no one's going to rush to register unless it's me and the 5 other people. But I'm sure a lot of people, hopefully about 10 or 15 more people will register between now and Saturday, and then maybe I can not go 0-2. But I'm thinking I'm going to go 0-2 very soundly, and it'll be fun anyway because I'm going to get to play IRL Melee with people and hopefully find somebody who can be like, hey, I'll apprentice you a little bit, or maybe I'll find somebody who's actually around my skill level and we can just get better together. Like that's what I really want to find as compared to playing online a lot. I don't know. That's where I am right now.
There you go. That's sick, man. Love that. Super happy for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, that's an update for me and for Lancaster. So if you're in the area, I know that a few people listen to the podcast that are sort of local, although they're probably already going to the event anyway, but just make sure you keep going. And again, Curtis, Jay Bobison, thank you so much for making that happen. So
very cool.
I wanted to, ask you a little bit more about the origin story stuff because even though we've talked about it before, I don't remember every detail. And I love hearing that you came in at around the same time and talked to people in the beginning that you're still friends with to this day. They're still in the community to this day. You want to talk about those friendships that you formed towards the beginning?
So, I first local was August 1st, 2014. It was a game over. I went to high school with Crush, so I was a year older than him. So he was the one that I knew about competitive Melee before, but he told me about locals. I played with him, and I played with Yasu a bit, but I didn't know he didn't go by Yasu at the time. I just knew him as Art. And he was a Roy player, funny enough. I mean, plays Marth now, ended up becoming top player. Yasu changed his tag. And he become a top player too, but in his own right, not on Crush's level. But those two were great to play with. But yeah, commute to tournaments like on the like my like Melee before me. So like I started right before my senior year of high school started, and I wasn't really able to go to a lot. I was able to go to I went to all three busts, which was like the first. So like before Shine was a thing, New England had obviously never had a national. Well, at least in the modern era, they had a
Right.
national back in the day with the Mage, with the Mage, the Solid Jake. But like we had never had anything on like that scale. So we ran these regionals called Bust, which was Boston University Smash Tournament, held at Boston University. There were three of them. They're all fucking iconic tournaments. Like the Boston tournament series that invented the multiple brackets um, format. Like your amateur bracket existed before that, but this one had four different. It was round robin pools, and depending on how you did in each round robin pool, so it was like 8 people in each pool. 2 people would go to pro bracket. 2 people would go to intermediate bracket. Um, 2 people go to amateur bracket, and then 2 people go to um, Buster bracket. And that was like that tournament series, especially that one in particular. That's what got me really into it because like when I was coming up, like so after like high school, right? I played plenty of Melee, I went to locals and stuff, but I didn't really find my family till I went to like college in Connecticut. And one thing led to another. It's like a pretty long story, but essentially the Quinnipiac. I went to Quinnipiac University, and Rolled Gold was an alumni. He graduated like a couple months before I like showed up. Um, and he was the TO of Hall of Gaming, which has been like the one of the longest running tournament series of all time. Um, just straight up. And it's he and Schminkledorf were the TOs of that. And one thing led to another in that I was able to. So like as far as like going out in college, I'd go out on the weekends, but like in my school, some people go out Thursday night. But I was like, okay, Thursday's like actually like perfect for Melee for me. So I'd be there, and I'd like I said, I'd taken an interest in seating like before. Like I had dabbled in TOing and commentating and like all that shit before, but it wasn't until Jason Roll Gold was like, hey, like I can't keep doing this drive. Like he worked at Duracell, which was like an hour, like hour 10 away, and like driving Connecticut is a bitch. So like ultimately, he was just kind of like, okay, like you're really into this stuff, so and you've been like learning a bit, so I mean, you want to take over, and I'm like, hell yeah. So I took over, and like thing was, the weeklies were always good, but Connecticut didn't really have weekend events before, so I kind of got our monthlies going and created Gigahog. Well, we used to run like the Hog by monthlies before, and those were good too. But like once it got to the Gigahogs, that's when I like really hit my stride. And like for context, the last Gigahog was it was it was in I believe the end of January or the beginning of February 2020. And there was a snowstorm that weekend out of nowhere. And the Fiends were so dedicated, I still had 90 people. Like that tournament would have had an obscene amount of people, like regardless. I just built like such a rapport. Um, ultimately, which was cool. So like one thing led to another. Started TOing that. Got pretty good at that. Was involved with like stuff with Shine as far as commentary was concerned and seating. Ended up just becoming a TO straight up, and that was like still early on because I've only been TOing like technically since like 2016, so 5 years. I've been in the community like 8 years, but I've only been TOing for like I've been TOing for most of that, but like I don't really count the first like Melee before college for me. Like that was when I was getting my feet wet, but I didn't
Yeah.
really like get the game. Like I got to practice. So, like I was blessed. I was able to play with like some of the most iconic players like in Melee of all time. Like story I always tell is like Swift Base, who fucking great person to talk to. He should be a bucket list person on your list for sure because that guy literally invented pretty much the Connecticut slash New England and Pittsburgh melee scenes. Like pretty much was the godfather of both of them. And he was my favorite player. Like he was the first tournaments that I ever saw was Swift Base versus Fisher. It was Fox DK at Evo on stream. And first saw him at Bus 2. Ended up through my college connections, I was able to go and like just be in the scene. I'd go to fests at his house. Connecticut was big on fests back in the day. Fests are great. Fest culture was definitely a big part of keeping me in melee. Very much about the people, but ultimately, though, go to his place, and it's just crazy. He just became, someone I idolized. Still do. Became like one of my really good friends and like a mentor. Like he's been around the block. He's got that's a man with a wife and a house, like, and a really good job, like, and has done multiple careers. Like he's been around the fucking block. So just stuff like that is just very cool to me. Like the kind of the doors that were opened, um, from getting involved. But yeah, I mean that's generally, and I've just kind of kept things moving ever since. Like I graduated in 2019. I've been back in Massachusetts. I've taken over New Game Plus. So the coolest part too is that the local I run now, New Game Plus Revival, is the direct continuation of the first local I ever went to in August 2014. So I actually went full fucking circle, dude. Like I went from attendee to running it. So if that doesn't say anything about the grind I've been on, then I don't know what the fuck else does. So
But you don't have a MeleeStats role in the Discord. What's up with that? You just have the patron role.
nah, I'm adjacent with them. I'm really good friends with them, but I'm not good with numbers like that. Not to the degree they are. Like raw history and shit. I'm the motherfucker you see with the baseball cards. Okay, I'm not the one when it. I'll use a baseball analogy. I'm not the one with the gut. Like the people at baseball games who have like the small ass sheet or whatever. It's like that format, and they're like keeping track of every individual interaction and shit. That's like melee stats. Me, I'm the fucking like guy who's like talking up the lore, like, oh, this guy, he was a fucking star in college kid, like just straight Boston on my straight Boston shit. But like that's me. That's honestly that is like the perfect analogy for it, really, because and that's why I like I'm very friendly with all of them. Like some of my best friends. I mean, I was literally at Edwin Bunning's wedding. That was literally like I think that was actually like a couple days ago. Was the 2 year anniversary of that.
Yes, yes. Happy
So
anniversary to Edwin Budding, and
yeah,
and the
but
lady. Excuse me.
yeah. But anyways, nah, I'm not a numbers guy. I work with them plenty. I mean, a lot of melee stats and myself are in the national seeding group, but you know,
Yeah, but and seating is numbers. So how do you do seating? Like that's what I want to know.
seeding is do it the more like the not like it make bracket structure. Bracket structure is so fascinating. Like to be honest, like one of the coolest parts that really got me into it was like I liked how bracket structure worked in like you know like league and shit. But when it came to melee and like just seeing, learning about round robin pools, seeing formats like waterfall be developed, like coming up with all these other ideas, bracketing is just like it's something I never knew I was so into until I got into it. So in my opinion, bracketing and stats are very related, and you can't really have one without the other, but at the same time, um the numbers don't really like they do and they don't matter because they directly determine who plays each other. But when you get to a point where you realize of how often upsets are, what it really comes down to is you're trying to maintain, you want to reward people for skill, But ultimately in 2021 era, and just Melee is the most unique game when it like and Ultimate to Smash in general,
Yeah.
just like fighting games in general, but particularly Smash's community is very good about, avoiding regional conflict, like going out of their way to like make sure like, there's variance in who plays and shit. So when you have perspective, it's not necessarily the numbers maintain who plays each other, sure, but ultimately it's more so that's where I come in because you have the records of people playing each other, which true, that's a stat. But some people it's just they just retain that shit. Like for me, so like often, for example, I'll shout out G Town Tom, who is also he and I pretty much run New England these days. And
Friend
he
of the program.
oh yeah, and he it's funny, we'll be talking, we'll be seeing shit, and like he'll go to the bracket immediately. But I'll pretty much always know. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they played like this week. Like it was actually fucked up. Like on commentary last night, I actually like knew the exact set counts. Like just
Oh no.
like for no reason, like for no, just actually like just a complete guess.
It's
And like,
alarming.
right, just because I'm like,
You're
I
not
mean, I
that
run the
guy.
god. To be fair, I run the goddamn tournament where most of the sets happen. So like, I pay attention to my tournament because I mean, I don't get. That's the thing. I don't get to enter that much. I mean, I really, to be honest, I could enter it, but I'm more there for the people. But I don't get it twisted. I still got fire from Melee. I'm very much one of the gatekeepers in New England. If you beat me, you're probably ranked in your state, or you're probably pretty good and can beat people.
Yeah, because it
Um,
depends on the region. Like, there's a SoCal player that's not ranked. Doesn't mean they're not a good player.
oh no, I mean ranking culture. That's Christ Almighty. If this wasn't a chat about like kind of my stories and shit, I could talk about that for hours. But that's a story for another day. But yeah.
There's something that I've never understood, and it's not fair for me to automatically assume that you know just because you went to high school with Crush. But I vividly remember seeing for the first time that interview where he just looks at the guy and says, "Actually, you know what? I just realized I can't do this," and walks away. And so that, like, I don't know the exact order of what happens after that, but is that literally the last time he's like front facing in Melee and just like completely dips after that?
Oh, dude, like I wouldn't know that off the top of my head. I don't remember like the exact date of that interview. See, I can recall the date, like the people he played and shit. But you want stuff like that day of the like, nah, that's hey, go talk to the MeleeStats guys. No, they probably don't know either. But no, maybe I mean Jack just took a step back because he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. I mean, if you want to hear from the horse's mouth from like someone, I don't claim to be closer to him than ever. People shout out to my boy Ant and Cags who are like really tight with him. They're both sick ass players, sick ass people. But if you want my opinion as someone who knew him for years, um, still do. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he ended up calling me stock. But what's funny is like, so my name is Sean Thomas O'Connor, and the tag stock money, and so it originally was stock because they had the LL Bean backpacks, right? And usually it was three initials, but my mom got one that was four, so it was STOC, and that's what it used to be. It used to be STOC, but then I'd use it as a fucking gamer tag, right? It's always been my gamer tag. So sometimes people pronounce it stock, sometimes people pronounce it STOC. So my first local, I go there and I actually have no idea how it's going to be pronounced. I was actually assuming it was going to be pronounced STOC. And then Matt.Zeb calls me stock. And I'm like, okay. Stock. And then later on in Connecticut, which is fine because STOC is cool, but stock works way better for like Smash and some other shit because it's just crazy um how how often I have to introduce myself as stock because I'm like, okay, they're not gonna call me my real name, so it's not worth knowing. But is what it is. And yeah, so ultimately, like, he kind of just Crush just kind of accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, and you know, going back to my tag, I kind of lost my track of thought there for a second.
I think you
The money part of stock
yeah.
comes from. So in Connecticut, everyone used to enter with joke tags, right? And full disclosure, I had a Miller Lite before this, so I'm vibing. Um,
You're
and
perfectly fine with vibing, by the way. You know, Shuppies
yeah,
came on like
I lose my track of thought a little bit. I also wake up mad early for work. I know you do too.
yeah, yep. It's been
So
a long day. A fun
oh
way to
yeah,
finish it off, though.
it's been a goddamn long day. I'm like, oof, but we got to keep it moving. But anyways, in Connecticut, when I first moved there, everyone would enter with joke tags, and so mine, I went for like low hanging fruit. I was like New York Stock Exchange, and people thought that was hilarious. And then my buddy Matt, Tag Doom, just one day was like, "Yo, stock money," and I was like, "Okay, I fuck with this." But then everyone thought I was ripping off hacks, and I know Aziz pretty well too. And it's like, no, I wasn't. The tag came naturally from that. But I used to spell it. So here's another thing. Well, two things. For one thing, if you want how weird coincidences and tags can be in this goddamn community, because there are a lot of coincidences. So, like I said, I just gave you the whole lowdown, Sean Thomas O'Connor. There's a fucking player from Chicago whose tag is Sock, SOC, and his name is Sean O'Connell. Yep. And I played him before as
Did you win?
and won. I won, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. That was a fucking friendlies at Lake Shine, but like Shine 2017 or something, I don't even know. But either way, um it used to be STOC dollar sign, but then there's a player named Stocks who's also from Massachusetts. This and for context, I am the palest motherfucker on the planet. And Stocks is a fucking legendary fucking homie black fucking Mario. Like this guy is he's we could not be more different. But people would actually mistake me for him because they think Stocks they pronounce it Stocks, and that fucking drove me insane because he's a legend, but my tag isn't fucking Stocks, it's Stock Money. That just pissed me off. So that's why I started spelling it, and I like lowercase, like I like the all caps aesthetic, but for me lowercase is cool. It's my vibe. So just spelled it out all lowercase Stock Money, and no one has mispronounced it since pretty much. So that's that. That's the tag origin. People always get a kick out of that. I literally have people like for years who would have no fucking idea. Um, by the way, like what my name was or like what my tag meant. Like they'd find out and be like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, was it not obvious? And I mean, in Smashy G era, where like in Twitter era, where like your name's out there and shit.
Yeah.
Um, obviously it's easy to figure it out. But like before, when it was like ultra, I mean, for Christ's sakes, dude, when I started going to locals, they were still on TIO Pro. Like Trelonge was like just starting to become really big. I mean, oh god, Smash G was such a fucking paper pools, fucking like trying to run all. You'd have to make so you'd make a Trelonge bracket and you'd have to make multiple brackets and work out the seating by hand to figure out shit before Smash G had its algorithms and could obviously a very user friendly
Mm.
way to do it, but it was not like that by any means back in the day. Nope, no siree. So I'm just saying.
You got to see the end of that era though, because it wasn't too terribly long where Smash GG started to take over, right?
Um, dude, honestly, so the first Smash G tournament I remember, I believe, was I think the Big House 5. That was the first big one. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was. For sure, because Big House 4 had PM still. and then Big House 5 was the first one that didn't have PM.
Sad.
Smash GG's, yeah, Smash GG's only been around for like, like 6 years, and been a very interesting time too, because a lot of people from like New England in particular have like worked there, as well. Myself, I've made it through. I had been a contender to work there at one point, but none of the I was just a little too young at the time, and just like positions didn't work out. But I've been very adjacent with like Smash GG for years, and like very happy to have worked with them on like uh what's it called? Very very happy to have worked with them like with Shine and stuff, and just like it is a blessing to have a platform like that. No matter what gripes you have, with certain things, like how long it took for like mobile shit, etc. It's they're definitely doing God's work, I would say. So is what it is. But
I want to hear a story of yours that comes to mind when it comes to Shine, because you could talk about how it started from your own perspective if you want to, but I know you love the lore, so tell me a lore story as it comes to any of the Shine tournaments that you've run and been a part of.
all right. Oh man. Okay, so it's Shine 20, I want to say 17 or 18, and I am I'm walking around the venue. This is in like, I think we're in top 64, so like it's a busy time. I'm watching matches, I'm doing other shit. And then I'm walking all of a sudden, my buddy Coldo, Colin Fife, one of my idols, one of my mentors. And then Tafokins runs up to Tafokins runs up to me first, and he's like, "Yo, Stock, we need a TO. Something's going on in the back." I'm like, "What the fuck?" So then Colin and I go back there. It turns out that Mewtwo King requested to play Shroom backstage, and what happens is Shroom goes up 2-1, because they gentlemen to no chain grabs. And what happened is Mewtwo King pauses the set and wanted to go to chain grabs. And there was a debate on that. And so me and Colin come back there and we're like, what the fuck? Because the thing with a gentleman's agreement is this a gentleman's agreement? Like, there's no, like, we're not going to be like, oh no, because of that, like, he can't stop, no chain grabs. Like, it's a no. Like, so it's like, we're like, if Mewtwo King wants to break the gentleman's agreement, then I mean, we don't have a lot. It's grimy, but we don't. It's not in the rules, so it's like it's just such a Mewtwo King story. It's just like, what the fuck. So he ends up like
Perfect
winning.
Mewtwo King story, yeah.
He ends up winning the set, but like out of all of the TO decisions, and I've had some weird ones. I've had people call the store on the phone to try and pre-register for a weekly instead of like literally any of the 7 other ways you could do it. They called the place.
Wow.
Which to me was funny, because how would you call the place? Like, I don't know how you would find the tournament, that like, because every post of the tournament would have my number and my Twitter. I don't know how, or like, Christ sake, it might even have my email. I don't know how you'd end up calling the damn store. But the Mewtwo King fucking gentleman thing, that shit just always leaves a sour taste in my mouth, because I was like, man, that's so dumb. I mean, it was so dumb they were playing backstage too, but like, he wanted to avoid the. I don't know. That's a curse set. I mean, Christ, was that the year he fucking won? Or fucking got like, oh god, I don't even know,
yeah,
dude.
I can't remember off the top
I
of
think
my
it
head.
was. I actually think it was the year he won. Yeah, Shine 2017. That sounds about right.
Yeah, so
maybe it was,
yeah,
no,
I'm only
that
trying
had
to
to be
remember.
17, because 2016 is when Mango lost to, I believe, Nintendo.
So
Or
then,
something.
if 2017 was the year that SFAT went on that big run and beat Hungry Box.
Yeah, yeah, because and that's because Yeah, and that's all. Oh God, there's so many like different fucking things with Shine. No, it had to have been 20. It had to have been 2070 because Mewtwo King beat SFAT in that grand finals. And Mango got third, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like that. Because actually, what's funny is I've never been. So I was in college up until 2019. So I'd never been able to stay for like day 3 of Shine until 2019, and that after party's legendary. So we had a cipher of like me, Makari, Get a War Machine, these are some New England names. Mike Hayes, Mog. We had a big like rap cipher that's like recorded. You can go find that on the New England Melee Facebook page. Part of it, like you can find Mog like absolutely like destroying this like fucking Wii Shop like remix beat, like crazy.
I
But
love that
yeah,
though.
no, that Shine's a good time. There's some fucking annoying ass situations, but I fucking love that tournament. So love it to death. It's my baby. I mean, I'm not even one of the big boys too. Honestly, I'm just grateful for the bosses like she, like Matt Dot Zeb, like Colin, like fuck, dude, crazy.
You want there to be a Shine 2022 just as much as the next person, obviously, but from your own
Oh,
perspective, how realistic is that?
I'm not going to explicitly say when it is, but I would count on Shine being a thing next year.
So, like that aside, I'm not saying you have to tell me one way or the other,
Oh,
but
I'm not. I don't plan on it. But I
but
would
your
say
heart. Tell me where your heart is. Do you want it
count on the
back?
Shine organization being back running events in 2022 for sure and onward.
And that's what you
But
want,
I'll say
right?
no more than that.
And that's what you want, right?
What wanted to come back? Oh, totally. I mean, granted, like running events in this era has been so wild, but like I honestly got to give props to all the people that go to shit and like have been compliant with like us having we have a vaccination database, like we
Mm-hmm.
have like you know very strict about masks and shit. Everyone's like I literally have yet to have like any issues in New England outright, and planning on keeping it that way. um you know Hell or high water. I mean, granted, we've seen with some of these ones breakout cases are possible. I'm not gonna, there is inherently a risk, but I generally think, all things considered, like we have done, you know, a very good job, given the circumstance. I very much think it's possible to run safe events in this era, but if you don't take certain precautions, I think you should not be running events. But I think the Melee community as a whole has done pretty well with that. And I will say I was very much skeptical, and there's a reason why I haven't really traveled like outside of you know yet to anything big, like you know like your Riptides. Like, yeah, I'm planning on going to Genesis. I'm registered. I kind of just like wanted to work on my own region in 2021, like while we came back with what Melee we had left with the year, right? So that was kind of the intention, and it's gone, fairly well as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, no, I mean, definitely, I think it's very much possible to keep shit rolling. So,
I'm
yeah,
hoping to get out to a few of these super majors myself in the year 2022. It's been tricky since we moved. That's an expense and some other things, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to make a few things happen. Like I want to, like the vision that I have is like going to places that are more East Coast for sure because I can drive pretty well. Not that it's like a super secret hidden talent that I have or anything. It's just that I've I've done driving for a living and It's not a big deal to me. So like I'll drive if I need to a place like Super Smash Con. That's easy clap, or up to Shine, easy clap, you know. But
Yeah.
for something that's out in the Midwest, like the Big House or Genesis in the year 2023, I guess, since I'll be missing Genesis 8, like I want to fly, I want to take my wife with me, and we'll leave the kids at home with my parents or something, and we could just go. And yeah, obviously there'll be a lot of things that are geared towards me, but like we'll like I'll take her to like a restaurant that somebody tells me about, you know, like maybe, you know what I mean? Like I think it'll be super cool to do something like that and make the tournament the central part of the experience as well. So that's what I'm trying to do, but we're going to have to look real hard at that in the new year. Once the new year comes along, my wife and I will take a look at everything that's going on and see if we can do that. I want so badly to go up to a New England event, Stock. You have no idea, because I want to force myself onto the Alston Melee podcast. I want to be at some of those local tournaments, and then maybe at a big monthly that's happening, like Mass Madness or whatever it is nowadays. So I'm hoping to get up there at some point, even if it's not for Shine, even if it's for like more local stuff, because it'd be so cool to meet all the people that I've like interacted with, like you. Obviously Austin Melee, but also get a War Machine and G Town Tom, like all those
You're
people.
welcome anytime.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just make it happen. We'll be in touch. You know where to find me. You've found me before. You found me for this. So
So to get in the direction of wrapping up, you are not the all-knowing and authoritative source on coming from a TO's perspective. You are an expert, and you've done this for long enough that you can talk about yourself specifically when it comes to your opinion on a 1.03 patch that Hacks recently introduced to the world and will be rolling out, I guess, in another month or so. But just like sweeping changes to how the game works from a software perspective. So if you've read anything about that, do you have any opinions on it?
yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it. Because like the thing with me too, and it's another thing with MeleeStats is like I'm very much you know, kind of like it kind of just took me a bit to kind of get myself up to speed on some knowledge and shit. But like ultimately, I've been a big fan of what they've done. I think the current Slippy patch is like the 1.08 is very good. I'm a big fan of that. I like I like some of the stuff going on in 1.03, but then like I don't know. I'm not when it comes to modding stages, like I'm pretty content with just Frozen Stadium. Like I can totally see wherever people are coming from. Generally, like I try to lean in the like where the people go. I'm usually chill with. I'm very indifferent, but as a TO, right? Like I'm an indifferent like I'm just when it comes to me in Melee, I'm the worst. I have used like some of the fucking worst controllers of all time, and then people need to borrow a control. I give it to them. They're like, "How the fuck do you play? Your trigger doesn't work," and I'm like, "Oh, I only use this one because it's true. I one pretty much, and it's like, oh shit." It's like, oh my god. So there's like stuff like that. Do I think it's like I think it's like very promising and like cool. But I don't know if it's necessarily just everything on that whole situation aside. Um, like I think it's a cool idea, but I don't know if I really. I'd like that it's going to be publicly available. I like all that, but you need more. Just the changes that's making. It took us so. It literally took. Okay, wobbling getting banned only happened because the Smash World Tour rule set did that. And the only reason Stadium finally got completely frozen is because Slippy removed transformations for it to fucking
To work.
run properly.
Right.
So like when you take that in mind, when you keep that into consideration, that two of the biggest rules to change were pretty much caused because I mean it was almost like it was like one of those things was like everyone was down for it, but it was when you come down to it at the end of the day, kind of conformity, but like in a universal way, so to speak, like a mostly universal way. You have plenty. You're always gonna have people that have you know detract on that, but it took, but it just kind of took a lot for that to happen. So I noticed in like that one, and I'm talking mostly about stage stuff, like ledge grab and all that other shit. That's cool, but that's I'm like I said, at the end of the day, however the direction the game wants to go. I mean, I don't want it to be too drastically changed though, and that's why I'm like, I don't know, because well, all of the weirdest part of that one is, to my understanding, I don't think this is confirmed, so don't. But I was under the impression that at one point they were going to try, um, they were going to make all the FOD platforms the same height. That's the really big one because people have always talked about, you know, Freeze Wispy, Shy Guys, all that other shit. Which, by the way, I don't. I would personally rather Wispy. I guess I don't care, but don't get rid of the Shy Guys. I don't know.
The Shy Guys
Just
are my people. I
don't get
hate
rid of
that
Shy
they're being frozen.
Guys. Don't get rid of Randall. Yoshi, leave Yoshi's alone. Like Dreamland, I guess you get rid of Wispy. I don't really care. Wispy literally has Wispy's literally never bothered me. Ultimately, though, if you want my opinion on it, especially coming into this, I mean, people are pretty much adopting, and that's okay. Another issue with that too, I literally didn't even think about right now. So that's on a memory card 1.03,
Yep.
or at least it's going to be, and then they're gonna ship it out. There's no way like it's gonna, it's not, unless it somehow is Slippy built in, like you lose the ability of what's so cool at these locals, which is having the files for people.
Yeah.
So it's a good, so what that might be good for the 1.03, that might be good for like nationals where like you can't do Slippy, but the direction's almost going in where people are. I mean, this community will fucking do anything. I mean, and I mean that. And when it comes down to the end of the day, you hit up a couple TOs who already have their own stashes of USBs and shit, and it's not inconceivable to have a whole, top 128 recorded. Um, you know, so that's another thing I didn't even think of. Do ultimately, it's cool shit. I mean, just anything, just rocking with it. Do I think it's gonna stick? I have no. I mean, I don't know. It's just so. It's so random for that to come out right now.
Yeah, and I almost feel like I kind of treat it as like, you know how people have always, well, let me rephrase. There have been suggestions in the past of having seasonal stage lists, right? Add in some custom stages and cycle it through seasons where maybe one season of competitive play, these are the 5 or 6 neutrals and a couple of counter picks, and you're, like I said, you're putting in some custom stages in, and that'll be what it is for that season, and then the next season you switch it up again and again and so on. I kind of think of this as like kind of like the same thing where it's almost worthy of its own bracket or its own little tournament setup where it's like you want to play the 1.0 Cardinal Wispy Frozen FOD platform starting off even bracket, that's over there. And then this is going to be the closer to, but still not actually vanilla Melee because people still want their UCF, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like it's going to be treated like that at first, and then maybe depending on how popular it ends up becomes the standard. I think the biggest draw is the button remapping, although I found out today it's not true button remapping. It's only remapping different buttons for jumping. And isn't that just like the most infuriating thing ever? You figured out how to code the game where you could have a menu in the menu of Melee. Look, button retoggling, and then you say, oh, no, you can't do shield with A. We're only talking about jumping buttons being remapped. Just like, I almost wanted to throw something just because I was like, just open up the rest of the toggling. I don't know if anybody wants to shield with A, but if they want to, they should get to do it. Damn it. That was my
Yeah,
reaction.
I agree.
I don't even
So
know that, like, it's not totally not a thing to shield with A. I don't, or I would be surprised. But somebody wants to do it, they should get to do it. But apparently, the 1.03 memory card thing only retoggles buttons for jumping. Like if you want to jump with the left trigger or the right trigger is Z, I guess. Anyway, I'm just excited to, for myself, get more into the tournament setting, actually start to complain about these little things, because I've always enjoyed Yoshi's story with Randall, with the Fly Guys, the Shy Guys, because I love there being just a little bit of something, because I think that Melee, the theme of Melee to me has always been that there's a little bit of something. Now, watching PC Chris get 70 damage on last stock, last hit with cars at MLG Anaheim in 2006, watching that was a pain. But if there's a little bit of Fly Guys here and there, what is the big deal? Seriously, the FOD platforms being RNG, what is the big deal? I am excited to be proven wrong. I don't think I will be, to be honest with you, but I want to play enough Melee to actually start to understand some of these things more, that, you know, the hardened veterans who have sunk in tens of thousands of hours complain about all the time, because I want to try to get to that point so I can understand a little better. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. It's something, man. I mean, for me these days, it's very much a social thing. But there was definitely a time where I was on the cutting edge of that kind of shit too. So I'm happy for you, man.
We'll see what happens with me and the competitive part of it, but I wanna stretch that muscle if I can, or build it or whatever,
I mean,
because
going to the locals and playing, just
yeah,
that's all that's good.
yeah, I want to see like how far can I actually take this, because I've always been like, am I just secretly one of the best players of all time, but I've never actually put in the time, because I haven't. I want to, you know, I'm practicing each night this week, like a little bit here and there. This just to see how it goes on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to it. And Stock, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do going into the new year, when Melee will be officially 20 years old, and you'll be going into your 9th year of being in the community. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. Where can the people find you if they want more of the Stock Money lore?
You can find me at Stock Money on Twitter, same on Insta. But if we're talking Melee, it's mostly Stock Money. But I'm mostly this time. I'm more glad to plug at New England SSBM. That's the official New England Twitter account. If you want to get into the New England scene, because our regionals are popping, we have literally hosted like some of the biggest regionals this year. Like we had posted like 100 something person tournament, like multiple.
Would have been 100 for G Town Tom's birthday bash, but invitational.
Trail Invitational would have been even bigger, but we had to cap that. You know, this is kind of how it is. But like, follow that. Got plenty of news, and I guess that's for me. And the only other things I'll plug or follow hog_CT and Alston Melee, because those are two really good New England oriented like content creation, you know, / tournament adjacent entities. So, but yeah, just hit me on Twitter. More, that's usually the best place to find me, and I'll shoot the shit with anyone. I can't promise I got instant DMs, but they're pretty damn instant. So you know where to find me.
Yeah, so for this is an Alston Melee t-shirt. For those of you who couldn't tell, it's reversed. It's mirrored, so it's hard to read Alston Melee in fancy font, but I've been missing my Alston Melee content, so I'm very much looking forward to the return of the Alston Melee podcast and so on, where I think it's great content. You're exactly right. But that Mog_CT, is that the other one? Or Hog?
HOC_CT.
I'm gonna have to drop a follow
That's
there.
my old local. That's player owned by RD. So player owned venue, one of the probably the only of its kind in Melee. So
super cool.
support that shit.
Shout outs to New England and Stock Money. Thank you so much for being.
Bro, I know we're closing up, but really, you do good shit. Absolutely, Doug.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining me on Bottom of Smash Mountain again, but also for the first time.
Yeah, first time. No doubt.